the court issued a bench warrant on the DG of the now Phantom Federal Agency PFIPC, Mr. Adeniyi Adeyemi, and the Osun police have now confirmed that he is now being arrested and in custody. And President Bola Tinubu has transmitted a state executive police bill to the National Assembly, which the House of Reps have now stepped down its own version for President Bola Tinubu's version. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale, live for you here in our Abuja studio. There's a lot of development on one of the major stories that we dealt with here on the program. The man who spoke to me right here on the program, we understand yesterday, now we understand that he's now in police custody, Mr. Adeniyi Adeyemi. Much of the details of that, the perspectives, the questions, the issues around what happened, how it happened, the way and manner the agency operated, the issues that have arisen from all of this controversy, and a lot of the angles and the reactions to it will be given to you tonight on the program. So stick around with me, everyone, as we bring to you all the updates. Yesterday, we told you about Governor Seyi Makinde's reaction and his state address on what seeking for United Nations intervention and probe on what really happened. He's seeking a scrutiny of the process. The Governor Makinde's statement from yesterday, which let me remind you, so that when I'm giving you the other reaction, you might remember I'll be able to give perspective to what the reactions look like. This was what Governor Makinde said yesterday, which has now received a lot of reaction. Take a listen to him.
With a full sense of responsibility as the executive governor of Oyo State, call on the appropriate international human rights and accountability mechanisms, including those within the United Nations system, to closely examine the facts surrounding this abduction and the circumstances of its resolution. Such scrutiny is not intended to undermine our institutions. Rather, it is intended to reinforce public confidence that the truth will be established and that every person found to bear responsibility, regardless of office, influence, or affiliation, will be held accountable.
The call for scrutiny on the matter generated a heated debate on the floor of the Senate today. Let me allow you to listen to one of those who spoke on what Governor Makinde was seeking for.
The governor of Oyo State calling on the United Nations to investigate the overall circumstances surrounding the kidnap and even the rescue. I thought that was the most unstatesmanly. He was carrying partisan politics too far, and this Senate should condemn his unguided statement. Nigeria is a sovereign nation. When we wake up and call on foreign authorities to investigate, this is one case in which our armed forces have shown that without paying ransom, even if it meant that these children and some of the elders had to be in captivity for almost 2 months, that the armed forces were working quietly to have these rescue operations, which, as well captured in this motion, led to some loss of life. To trivialize it, to suggest, as the governor of Oyo State seems to have done, that there is something that is not open, that the UN needs to unearth the circumstances, is to question the sovereignty of our nation and to downplay the achievement of the Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and all the service chiefs and in fact all those involved in this process.
More reactions continue to trail what Governor Makinde said. This time around, Nigeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Jima Ibrahim, has faulted what Governor Seyi Makinde has said the call for United Nations probe scrutiny into the abduction of the school children and teachers in the Orire local government area of the state, insisting that the global body does not interfere or intervene in the internal affairs of sovereign member states. In a statement released by the ambassador's office in New York, Senator Ibrahim says matters relating to internal security fall within the responsibility of national and subnational governments, stressing that the United Nations is not empowered to investigate domestic security incidents such as a recent abduction in Oyo State. We allow you to listen to some of your political roundup stories, and when we come back, I will be digging deep into the matter, which is one of the biggest stories. I'll take you to the courtroom. What the court said about Mr. Adeniyi Adeyemi, what happened about to him in Osun State, and the perspectives and angles, and a lot of questions relating to that. Atiku Abubakar has already spoken about this. The presidency has reacted to it. A lot of issues, and all of the angles I will bring into you tonight. But first, let's serve you with your political roundup stories.
Justice Donatus Okorowo of the Court of Appeal Abuja has dismissed an application filed by the Adekunle Omoaje-led group of the Action Alliance, reaffirming Mr. Kenneth Udeze as the recognized national chairman of the party. The application sought to challenge the competence of Mr. Madem Yakubu Esquire, who was duly briefed by Mr. Udeze, the authentic national chairman of Action Alliance, to represent the party in appeal case. In his ruling, the court described the application as an abuse of court process, noting that Mr. Adekunle Omoaje already has a pending appeal before the Supreme Court, challenging the same judgment of the Court of Appeal, which affirmed Barrister Kenneth Udeze as the authentic national chairman of Action Alliance. The Court of Appeal, however, affirmed the leadership of Barrister Kenneth Udeze as national chairman of the party. The Kano State chapter of the Tinubu Renewed Hope appointees have reaffirmed their support of Kano State to the re-election bid of President Bola Tinubu and his running mate, Vice President Kashim Shettima, in 2027. The forum at its inaugural meeting held in the Kano State Governor's Lodge in Abuja says the decision is based on the conviction that President Bola Tinubu has done well in transforming the economy of the country, with visible infrastructural projects, including landmark projects, executed in Kano State under his administration. The meeting is at the instance of the state governor, Abba Yusuf, and is attended by former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Abdullahi Ganduje, the Kano State APC chairman, some lawmakers, and aides of the president. Lastly, Governor Mai Malo Buni of Yobe State says any government that its administration of justice fails to operate optimally is bound to face challenges. Governor Buni disclosed this in Damaturu, the Yobe State capital, when he received the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Alpha Mosigwe. He explains that the state government has sponsored over 700 Yobe indigents at the Nigerian Law School in the last 7 years.
Some updates on the situation in Oyo State relating to the abduction and the rescue. We now understand that the Ladoke Akintola University of Technology has discharged 31 rescued pupils, retained 8 for further medical care, all discovered in the heart of one of them. The Chief Medical Director of the Lautech Teaching Hospital in Ogbomoso has announced the discharge of 31 of the 39 rescued pupils abducted from schools in Orire, local government area of Oyo State, saying they have been certified medically fit and reunited with their families. The CMD disclosed that the hospital admitted 39 rescued children following their release from captivity, but 8 will remain under medical observation and treatment as part of efforts to ensure their full recovery. It says that one of the children was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect during a comprehensive medical evaluation conducted by specialists at the hospital. According to him, the child's parents were unaware of the condition before the medical examination. The medical examination is coming after the military handed over the rescued persons to the Oyo State government, and now they have undergone a deeper medical attention. We know now that 38 of them will be staying back in the hospital for further medical examination. Let's tell you about what happened today in the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives have received President Bola Tinubu's communication on the state police bill. The president has admitted or transmitted an executive version of the bill. Today, the president formally transmitted the Constitution Amendment Bill 2026 of the House of Representatives and the Alteration of State Police Bill 2026, seeking constitutional approval for the establishment of state police services across the country. The House of Reps now stepped back from its own constitutional amendment proposal on state policing and will instead proceed with a similar bill submitted by the presidency. The shift became evident during today's plenary when lawmakers formally introduced the executive-sponsored Constitution Alteration Bill on state police and swiftly advanced it through both first and second readings. Earlier today in court, what we know is that the Federal High Court today ordered the arrest, issued a bench warrant for the arrest of the controversial self-acclaimed Director General of the Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council, PFIPC, Mr. Adeni Adeyemi, after, according to court, he has failed to appear before the court in the scheduled arraignment. Justice Umar issued the arrest order following an oral application made by the police lawyer, Wisdom Madaki. Adeyemi was billed to take his plea on an 8-count charge relating to forgery, fraud, and impersonation. However, the matter was listed as number 12 on the court's cause list. The defendant failed to appear for his arraignment, even the lawyer, saying Justice Francis announced his appearance on his behalf. Shortly after the case was called, the prosecution counsel noted that the defendant had repeatedly failed to appear for his trial. The latest that we know is that the Osun State Police has now admitted and said that they've arrested Mr. Adeni Adeyemi. The picture of him being in custody is now being, as you see on your screen, the man was said to have been arrested earlier today in Osun State. The police told China Television, quote, "We have just confirmed the arrest of Mr. Adeni Adeyemi by a team of the Intelligence Response Team, IRT, in Osun State." A video accompanying the message showed Adeyemi being questioned by police operatives after he was arrested, although no further details have been disclosed about the arrest of Adeyemi. The development is coming after a court issued a bench warrant today in Abuja for his arrest following his failure to appear before the court on a scheduled arraignment.
The defendant. The court noted that the case was filed on November 27, 2025.
Let's get some insight on this matter. There's a lot of reaction, and perhaps one of those who is also reacting to this is a former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who is saying this matter is too serious to be swept under the carpet, and that more investigation and the root cause of the matter needs to be found out. But there are a lot of questions which I'm going to put before you tonight as Nigerians. And this is what Atiku Abubakar said. He says, quote, "Bajami Amila must be held accountable like every other public official and independently investigated to give him full opportunity to defend himself against the brazen act of corruption as detailed in the Gazette report." He went further to say that the matter is too serious to be swept under the carpet, and is asking that the federal government of Nigeria should take this seriously as it impacts heavily on the reputation of the country. He made allusion to past government. He said, quote, "Former President Buhari suspended his SG Babache Lawal from office in order to allow for unfettered investigation against him and Gbajabiamila should not be treated differently. End of quote. There are a lot of questions that I'm going to be posing as how these happened, where it happened, how it happened, how could it have happened in a sane Nigeria if the federal government says that is a fake agency. Who gave Mr. Adeniyi the admission, the employment letter or the appointment letter, as the case may be? Did they pay the money? What really happened? Could this have happened in the federal civil service? How could he? How did he Did he get the office of the federal secretariat? How did he acquire 3 CBN accounts? How did the head of service, the SG, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Accountant General, how were they communicating with him? He communicated with the EFCC. He communicated with the National Assembly. How did all of this happen? Where was the hole in the system? Well, a lot of questions that I'm going to be posing tonight. But you need someone who knows the system to be able to explain how the system works. That's why tonight, not just bringing to you someone you know, but someone who has an institutional understanding and a memory to be able to explain and break it down for us to understand. He's a former head of an agency. He now graduated to become, perhaps at that time, one of the youngest in Nigeria. He graduated to become aviation minister. Mr. Osita Chidoka, a former Minister of Aviation, is live for us in the studio. It's a pleasure having you tonight. Join us on the program.
Thank you very much, Sean.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Everything is in the realm of speculation. Everything is in the realm of imagination. How could it? How did this? How? A lot of questions. But I'm glad that once I reached out to you, out of the uneasiness and the inconvenience you made it, because this is more of education for the public who are going to be watching tonight. Let's break it down. We know a lot. As much as the social media has fed us. This man was on this program just about this time. I was speaking with him yesterday, but he's now in custody, as we understand. But let's break it down. You have looked at the whole matter. What is the fundamental question you began to ask yourself? You imagine if this was your time when you were in the IFRSC. How did you get your letter of appointment, for example? Who gives letter of appointment? Could we have seen a fake letter? If there was a fake letter, how does it look like? When what were the fundamental questions you asked yourself?
Well, Sean, thank you very much. Many years ago, I would have bothered with those questions. But now, I'm more bothered with institutional failure and institutional operation. So, the number one thing I will say about this is that this is a learning moment for Nigeria. And this is a learning opportunity for the government. So the government must not be defensive. They must not think of this as people attacking them. They must not see it as politics. They must see it as something very serious happening. Because all over the world, systems failures have occurred. I can give you multiple examples, but I'll give you 2. A company called Wirecard in Germany, for many years, had Ernst & Young as their auditors. And they were submitting fake accounts, including $1.8 billion that did not exist. It was until Ernst & Young refused to sign the 2019 account. That's when the world realized that Wirecard has been a fraud. Now, ask me, the Central Bank of Germany failed. The Securities and Exchange Commission failed. The regulators, the board, everybody failed in this. Another popular case is the case of Madoff in America. He was an investment Ponzi scheme. People complained to the Securities and Exchange Commission. But guess what? The Securities and Exchange Commission did not do anything. They didn't do anything. They just continued until the Ponzi scheme collapsed. So really, every time these things happen, what happened in Germany and what happened in America is an example we must take here. They openly investigated the process. They found out how did these various systems fail? How did the board fail? How did Ernst & Young fail? How did the regulators fail? Who failed? So the question is, letter of appointment, does it exist? Yes. Where did he get it from? When he sent it to the Secretary to Government's office, did you accept it without verification? When he wrote to the head of Civil Service office saying we need an office, did you check back to see whether this is procedural? So the point is that a culture has come into Nigeria. The culture that when you say no to something going on, you become a bad person. The culture that we now find it that you go to the National Assembly, you want to pass a bill, it goes first and second reading the same day. Anybody that says 1 minute is seen as an enemy. Skepticism is an important ingredient of government. The ability to ask questions should not be seen as enemy action. It should be seen as an opportunity for improvement. So that failure that led us up till the budget line, we need to have a map of that. I hear the president has asked ICPC to investigate. So ICPC should be open, should be clear. This is a learning moment.
Is it right for the president to have asked ICPC? Because the gentleman had raised fundamental questions.
Yes.
That ICPC will not indict the chief of staff.
So
that ICPC, and there are those who will say, the matter is already in court. Why are you asking an investigative agency to...
This is a systems investigation. I don't think it's about indicting people by the ICPC.
It's not about the arrest. It's not about the criminal or non-criminal case.
The government reported him. The government arrested him. They charged him to court. So let's assume that somebody gave him a letter of appointment.
Is it fake or original?
Is it fake or original?
How do you forensically?
Can we go back to the office of the chief of staff or whoever the letter emanated from? Check their file for that day. Is there such a letter leaving this office? Okay. So when you pass that, how did all the other agencies accept an inappropriate letter? Because letters of appointment are issued by the Secretary to Government. Secretary to Government,
is there
a letter?
No. Structurally, sir.
Yes.
SGF is the engine room of government.
Yes.
At the federal level.
Yes.
And so it is also in the state level.
Yes.
All appointment letters, minister, and even those who work in the presidency get their letter from the SGF. Is that right?
Correct.
Does the chief of staff to the president have the right or power to appoint or employ anybody in civil service?
No way. This chief of staff business is getting out of hand in Nigeria. He is a staff of the president. He is the chief organizer of the president's office. He has no business with the government machinery. He attends the Federal Executive Council ex officio, just by virtue of that office. So at the end of the day, he just to keep tab of the president. Now, the secretary to the government of the federation is the person that has the bureaucracy. He has 7 permanent secretaries. He interacts with the government agencies. So if the president creates a council most times, the budget of that council is under the SGF's office. And the SGF will be able to have a permanent secretary serve as the accounting officer. There is no way that the chief of staff office can write a letter. So meaning that if the letter of appointment in question that has been going on says from chief of staff's office and the head of service office accepted it and all the other agencies accepted it, then something is fundamentally wrong with Nigeria. So that's what ICPC
So either original or fake, the letter shouldn't have ever emanated from the chief of staff office.
Absolutely.
And naturally, let me take this personally.
Yes.
When you were appointed the head of FRSC,
yes,
the letter came to you by mail or by hand, or how did it come to you?
It was delivered by an officer of the Secretary to Government's office. Came with a motorbike, came with 2 letters. I took one. I signed the original, collected by me. I acknowledged it, and he went back.
So, what did you then do after you've obtained that, received that letter?
I went to FRSC. I called the deputy commissioner who was in charge. Said, I have been appointed. It's my letter of appointment. He said, okay, I'll prepare a handover day to hand over to you. And the SGF's copy of the letter went to him. The copy of that letter went to the chief of staff. The copy of that letter, because the approval was granted by the president by a memo by the SGF asking the president to approve the appointment of Osita Chidoka. As the president approved, the principal secretary to the president copied chief of staff, copied ADC, copied CSO, and said, forwarded to SGF and said, see, vide paragraph this presidential approval to convey. The SGF took it. Based on that letter, the SGF now wrote me a letter and copied the FRSC, the acting head, deputy commissioner.
So your first, did you have to communicate with the SGF office afterwards? For any reason?
No, I did.
Your business was with the agency.
But the challenge was that I reported to the SGF's office. the FRSC is based in the SGF's office.
Oh.
So he was my
reporting
supervisor. So
yeah.
I need to engage with them. But if it was like a ministry, I would have just gone to the ministry, given the minister my letter of appointment, and then go take over the organization. So for a non-existent organization which has been formed, you need to see the presidential instrument that created that agency. So this is a culture of, oh, that is what they said, and everybody is accepting. Oh, it's from Chief of Staff's office, everybody is accepting. What he means is that our institutional capacity has weakened over time, and it has nothing to do with this government. So they don't have to take it personal. They need to figure out whether the Chief of Staff wrote a letter or did not write a letter. A letter that is not written by the Secretary to Government ought not to instigate all this action, the consequential action that happened.
Because part of what Mr. Adeyemi is facing charges over, part of the charges is forgery.
Yes, he must.
That letter was forged. The SGF internal communication had denied any, and the police is also coming forward to say this is a forged letter. That is the position of the federal government, but there are fundamental questions, sir.
Yes.
Your office is within the federal government infrastructure.
Yes.
And that was because it existed. A critical question will be, can any agency exist without being created by law?
No. But a council can.
Like this.
A council.
For example,
yes.
If the federal government had not disowned this,
yes,
there could be
a council,
a presidential foreign investment council can exist.
In terms of reference, it will have a time lag. It is for this purpose, and it will either reside in the office of the Secretary to Government. So all their budgets. So whenever we set up things like the conference, national conference, national council on this, they are all resident in the SGF's office. There is an office in the SGF's office, the Political Affairs Office, that handles all these organizations, ad hoc committees, like the Oputa panel. It existed. It was in the office of the Secretary of the Government. The Constitutional Conference Committee, office of the Secretary to Government. So there is the Political Affairs Office, which handles these ad hoc committees and councils. But if it is a statutory agency, when an agency moves away from council to become a statutory agency, then it has to be backed by law.
So, because there are also those who say that fundamentally in this country, there are a long list of organizations that exist that are not created by law. And they have staff, they run, and in fact, and I know that there are...
Any example?
Some example?
Any example?
Yeah, there are a litany of them, but let me give an example of, there are some agencies that now, new laws that have emerged. Take, for example, the data protection law. Yes. When it was, there's the data protection, the Establishment Act, which created the National Data Protection Commission. Before it was existing, before the law now came, and it became, there was an Establishment Act to create. And there are those who say this kind of agencies sometimes operate in silos under some other established agency. Could this have been one of it? Because there is the inclination that the Professor Doyin Salami panel are set up by the Buhari government. If you look at the building where this office was situated in the Federal Secretariat, you will see Professor Doyin Salami's picture on the wall. And there are those who say that was the same office occupied by this man and his team, which in one of the documents show that this office is supposed to have about 300 staff in the 36 states of the Federation.
So it goes back to my point. The president can create a council. A council can exist under the office of the Secretary to Government of the Federation in the presidency.
Government after government, and it keeps existing.
And it normally should have a time gap, but this is what happens in Nigeria, that we have lost the capacity, and that's a major capacity, to be skeptical and to ask questions. Asking questions has now become an anathema. If you go to court now, you will see unanimous decisions. Anytime you see minority decision, it's almost like the person is a bad person. If you go to the civil service, they said, the president said, you can see a memo. Nobody will ask the question to say, can you show me the presidential instrument by which this body was created? Please, attach it to this letter when next you are communicating with me. So, because the attitude has now become like, if you say no, then you are a bad person. So this country must use this opportunity to restate that questioning is not an act of opposition. The presidency coming out in public and explaining how the system failed is a learning moment. We all saw the world when September 11 happened.
Yeah.
America investigated itself and
reorganized
said,
itself.
Our system failed us. So we're now having a Homeland Security Organization. We've seen that happen in many places. So now is an opportunity. Can we have a register of government agencies in Nigeria, maintained by the Office of the Secretary of Government, kept in a database? Can we now have a process of adding an agency into it, either by statute or by creation of the Office of the President? Can we now have a system that says for you to go to the budget line, National Assembly, every agency that you put in the budget line, it's not enough that the budget office sent you the budget. It's also important that we didn't budget last year for this. This year, provide us with the documentation of why this agency exists. So these are the lessons. This is what we learned, America learned from Madoff. This is what was learned from Wirecard. This is how the government now said you cannot be an auditor for more than a certain number of years because, at some point you get entwined with the company. So another person comes to look at the company accounts. So I'm saying that this is an institutional problem. It is not a find the criminal problem.
Yeah. So you have identified a fundamental crack.
Yes.
For whatever, and I'm going to pose a few questions because not only in law do you pose questions, because the law and the court is supposed to help answer the mystery around those questions, but it also will help our nation to, for a moment, redress and say, wait a minute, this is a shame and embarrassment to us as a people.
Yes.
And this is not about one government, because if anything, this has been existing for quite some time.
Yes.
Like you said, we need a long list of those agencies of government, and we need to start scrutinizing.
How did you get set up?
And you know that there was something that was very rampant. You were one, when you were in service, you were one of those who were screaming about Yahoo Mail, Gmail being used for government agencies. Yes. And that's why you see a lot of leaks. Yes. The memos that are being leaked and all of that. I've got a lot of questions which I'm hoping that you will help us answer. Mr. Atiku Abubakar is asking Mr. Gbagami Abinla to recuse himself, or the president to tell him to step aside. Politically speaking, does the president, there are those who say the president has done a satisfactory or whatever he needed to do in the phase of the matter. Do you think Atiku's call is needed?
Well, that's what the opposition does in any political environment. Their call is to put the government on the spot. Yes, but a government will have to investigate. You will have to ask agencies of government to advise. Because you can't say, people can't wake up in the morning and say, the chief of staff stole a chicken, so you should step aside. They will end up in a perpetual stepping aside business. But what happens first is an immediate investigation. The case they cited of the former SGF, there was actually money. It was actually paid. So the SGF had to step aside. Now,
and there was a grant to be cut.
The issue now is there a letter? Did it emanate from the office of the chief of staff? Yes. So if at any point we see a letter that emanated from the office of the chief of staff, then that introduces a new dimension to the conversation. But if at the end of the day, this man forged the letter himself, or somebody in the office of the SGF, because I've seen people come around and said, that they are working for such and such, we have access to this information or that, and they can give you this. So it is important that we go back to the institutional failure. My own major issue is, from the point that letter came out, how did he traverse all these agencies without anybody seeking to know who is this? Where is the letter of appointment? SGF confirmed that this government agency exists. How did the office of the SGF themselves allocate an office? Because the question should have been, we didn't issue this letter.
All right. Give me a moment. We're going to break. But when we come back, I'll pose the questions, the angles that will naturally worry the minds of an average person. But we've got Mr. Osita Chidoka, who understands the systems. And of course, he knows what to do in this kind of situation when you find yourself. How do you identify a fake letter? How do you get an office? Mr. Osita Chidoka, well, how did you get into the federal secretariat? What happens? How do any agency acquire an office in the federal secretariat? How do you get, for example, a diplomatic passport? I mean, in all of this, can you be a fake agent of government and still get all of this? How do you acquire 3 CBN accounts? How do you have multiple staff working for you? How do you get communication from the head of service, from the SVF, from the central bank, from the accountant general's office? How do you go around engaging foreign offices, ambassadors from different countries of the world, and you operate as a fake person? How would this happen? It will only have happened in our Nigeria. We'll be finding out after this break as well. Join us again. Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. The alleged phantom or fake federal agency and how he operated for several months or about 2 years plus gets our attention. The 38-year-old man Adeniyi Adeyemi, who is now facing an 8-count charge in the Federal High Court, is what gets us talking. But beyond Adeniyi Adeyemi, there are fundamental questions that it raises on the systems in Nigeria. And that's why tonight, my guest is a conversation about education on the processes and looking for solution to some of these challenges that he exposed. He's a former Minister of Aviation and a former head of the FRSC, an agency of government. So at that level, you understand the systems and the operation. Mr. Osita Chidoka, thanks so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Let me make our viewers understand more, and perhaps let's take a look at some of the issues that have been raised. And tonight, let me give everyone an understanding of the key facts to this matter in all of these, in this scandal. The court has issued a bench warrant for Mr. Adeniyi Adeyemi's arrest, and the arrest has been confirmed by Osun Police. 8 criminal counts were filed against him, and this is about the 4th or the 5th time that the court will sit on this matter, on which the court issued a bench warrant, and orally the police lawyer had moved for the bench warrant on him because he's not appeared. The president has said the PFIPC does not exist. ICPC has been directed by the president to investigate the wider allegations. Charges include forgery and impersonation. Arraignment has been now fixed to for September 30. Now, what are the charges before the court as we know it today? The alleged offenses include conspiracy, forgery, impersonation, fake presidential appointment letter, forged State House documents, false representation as DG of PFIPC, alleged fraudulent official correspondence. Well, Mr. Osita, these are questions that I would like you to help us answer tonight. How was the organization able to operate? Because these are institutional faults and gaps. Were internal verification system bypassed? Were public officials deceived or complicit? Who authorized access to government facilities? Will investigations extend beyond one suspect? What reforms are needed to prevent a recurrence? Mr. Chidoka, do we begin with the first one?
So let's start with how was the organization able to operate? That's a very big issue, how the organization was able to operate. Because multiple agency failure is something that can happen. And like I've told you, it's happened with Wirecard, it happened with Madoff in the US. Big organizations, SEC, American Security Exchange, failed in ascertaining that Madoff was just a Ponzi scheme. So it is possible for an organization to beat this. And why does it happen? It happens when people let go of skepticism. when questioning becomes enemy action. So because of Madov's reputation, because Wirecard was seen as a great German innovative company, nobody wanted to ask it a difficult question. So this is what happens when people come into public spaces. You have a vehicle, you close the number plate, and you drive into the presidential villa. Nobody at the gate says, hey, not here. Can you open this number plate? Because you need to run a verification whether this car is the same with the person with the car. So the question of how he was to operate is a systems failure in Nigeria, where institutions are no more allowing dissent within the organization. That's why he was able to operate. Because once you say, Chief of Staff said, President said, well, everybody knows that the Chief of Staff has no permanent secretary. The permanent secretary in the villa is the State House permanent secretary. He is the custodian of the State House. Now, but the secretary to government have 7 permanent secretaries because the government made him the engine house of government. So if the organization was able to operate, it was able to operate because over the years, we have degraded our public institutions, that asking questions is now viewed as enemy action.
Operation included federal being housed in the federal secretariat.
So that brings us to the Secretary to Government's office that has ceded its own function. If you
is it the SGF office that allocates offices at the federal secretariat?
The federal secretariat. At least as much as I know, it's the Secretary to Government's office. So they run the federal secretariat. So if an agency...
As a new agency, it would have gotten to the facility controllers and managers.
You have written to the Secretary to Government, who will have minuted it down to Permanent Secretary GSO. Permanent Secretary GSO will minute it down, General Services Office, to the facilities.
So a fake letter from the SGF office.
Yes.
Could he have got
a fake letter from the Chief of Staff's office? That's why I'm saying I'm interested in seeing
the letter. Because the letter is at the heart of this matter. Is the letter from Chief of Staff Biamela or from the SGF?
SGF. So I'm here to ask, if the SGF receives a letter appointing somebody DG from the Chief of Staff's office, what did he do? Did he say, oh, the President has appointed? No. If the President has appointed somebody, he will minute to the SGF. This man has been appointed. So this is what the ICPC investigation will unravel.
Yeah.
What was the reaction of the Office of the Secretary to Government to a letter informing it? Until I see that letter, I do not believe.
Yeah.
I personally don't believe that. So if he issued such a letter, that means that our system is so degraded that a whole Secretary to Government of the Federation would then take a letter from the Chief of Staff, who is an appointee, a presidential appointee. He's not a member of council.
More or less like a private
staff of the president.
The president. That is meant to operate in the shadow of the president.
Yes. The Secretary to the Federal Government of Nigeria is in our constitution.
But make us understand. So let's assume without considering that this man got a fake letter from the Chief of Staff. He could have used the same letter to penetrate the SGF. Is that right?
Yes.
Without any, just like you are saying that he just gave a gaping hole into the system, and everybody will say, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'll tell you this story. One of my friends used to come and visit me when I was a staff of the FCDA. At that time, General Seni was under the military, was the minister. So to cross the office some time of day, you needed to be a government worker. People, non-staff, were allowed after 2. But this guy comes in by 10 in the morning. And I said, how do you do it? You're always coming in here. He said, oh, that when he gets to the security man, he will say, tax force. He will open his ID, say, tax force. Then they will salute him, tax force, welcome. He will pass. Nobody stopped to say, tax force on what? So I said to him, if they ask you, tax force on what are you? He will say, oh, tax force on environmental sanitation in my village. He will say, I never claimed I was. So this tells you about verification. If you want to enter any Western organization
where internal verification system bypassed.
Yes.
Because
it wasn't bypassed, it failed.
It failed.
If this is true.
He's gone to the EFCC, Mr. Chidoka.
Yes.
He has gone to the national, at least the pictures that we see.
By the time you get an office in the secretariat, that has conferred legitimacy on you. You can't be writing another agency and they'll be asking you for your letter of appointment. Because the moment the Secretary to Government has granted you an office, every other agency assumes that the whole process has been followed.
We understand that.
It's like when you see an account signed by the auditors, you already assume that an audit has happened.
We understand that he has a diplomatic passport.
So
when you were FRSC head, did you have a diplomatic passport?
No, I never asked for.
No, okay, but you could have asked.
Yes, I could have asked. Even as minister, I didn't bother asking for diplomatic passport.
And I thought that process is usually very rigorous for you to be able. It comes from the Minister of Interior, right?
The Minister of Interior. Then they say letter of appointment and all of that. So he has all that now.
Since his office is international, foreign investment, so he will need
the council.
Yeah.
So it's not a statutory agency.
So verification failed.
Verification failed.
Were public officials deceived or complicit?
Both.
And that investigation by the ICPC
will unravel complicity.
Because
the complicity is not that they wanted him to be chief. The complicity is that people are now afraid to challenge higher order. So even if some civil servants suspected some foul play, they refuse to speak.
Quickly, so, he got CBN, 3 CBN accounts.
Yes.
3 CBN accounts.
Yes.
Verification, deceit or complicity, those are at issue. Who authorized access to government facilities? The letter would have allowed it. Also, the system failed. Yes. Will investigation extend beyond one suspect?
No. This is an institutional investigation. This is the lessons we need to learn. This is how we can say to ourselves, do you know what this means? If this man came and said he is a counsel, let's assume that a Nigerian enemy sets up an institution. And we've seen it happen when Israel sold pagers through a company to Hezbollah. So let's assume that an enemy of Nigeria created a council, passed it through offices, faked all these letters, gave it to the ACF, and they accepted it. And he went to budget office and he passed. And this man gets proximity to the president by virtue of being member of council. So the security man in the villa, this is my ID card, this is my passport. Oh, okay, so who are you? Oh, I'm the president in charge of DG PFIPC. Oh, okay, welcome. This man gets access to the president of Nigeria. This man can then sit inside and access sensitive government records. Because here we're thinking corruption in terms of money. We're thinking that this was done to extort money. What if this was a major nefarious article by a state agent, a coordinated attack, to bring somebody close within the proximity of the president, to bring documents about Nigeria's infrastructure or anything to the public awareness? This is the more serious issue, why we should have a full inquest, this may give us a clue how foreign agencies have operated in Nigeria without us knowing.
Under our noses.
Yes. Using a Nigerian.
Chief Osita Chidoka, a former Minister of Aviation. This is an educative session, which I must indeed thank you for. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean